Oh, he wasn't looking up tintype. He's just looking at pictures randomly.
Just porn.
Oh yeah, this is dope.
Oh, she might
maybe
be.
That's my.
Maybe she just discovered something.
Maybe
Yeah.
that'll be my genre.
Is that an 1820s dick?
Ladies and gentlemen, extra special treat tonight. Today's episode, we have a special guest. You know, like they say, behind every great man is a great woman, and this definitely reigns true. 20 years of experience, complete power of running the show behind the scenes, running the Evergreen Educational and Invitational alongside the rest of the squad, running the books for Joshua Carlton. Tonight, you get a look behind the scenes of the mastermind behind it all. We get to sit down and chat with the lovely Nicole Carlton. Tune in. It's a good one.
Welcome to another edition of the Tattoo Guardians podcast. And today we've got a special guest, Joshua Carlton's better half, Nicole Carlton. And I'm also accompanied with Joshua, of course, and Mr. Matt Klimmer. How you guys doing?
Doing fantastic.
Great.
Cool.
Awesome. Happy day. Nikki, so good to have you with us tonight.
I'm glad to be here.
Jeez. Did he have to twist your arm to do this, or have you been wanting to do this? Or?
No, I'm kind of excited to do it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
She's ready to tell the world who and what Joshua Carlton really is.
I know. I actually did not want her to. I was like, podcast.
No.
What are you talking about? Like,
Well, for those of us that don't know, let's start out with some basics, starting with how long have you two been together?
20 years. We've been together 20 years. Our relationship is now older than I was when we met. I was 19 when we met. So,
That's
yeah.
awesome. 20 years of being married to legendary Joshua Carlton, right? Traveling the world, the ins and outs of this thing called the tattoo industry. I bet they've been through some shit.
Man, totally. And what would that put you at 42, Josh, when you guys got together?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that sounds
Yeah.
about right.
that makes me sound super creepy. No, so I guess I was. How old was I?
You
actually?
were, oh God, math.
I was in my 20s, right?
You would have been 27.
27, yeah.
Yeah.
27.
Okay. Awesome.
And Nikki, you're from Indiana, correct?
I am. Yeah, I'm from a real small town south of Indianapolis called Shelbyville. And I came in for a tattoo, and he ignored me, and I was love at first ignorance, I guess. No, I didn't know how things worked then. You know, like I didn't know that some artists had appointments. You know, I thought it was just a walk in, get your piece, whatever, you know, flash kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I came in, and it was in Indianapolis. He was working at New Breed for St. Mark.
Yeah.
And I was ready. I had my money. I'd been saving, you know. And I wanted to get this little Gemini piece on the back of my neck. And he's sitting there at the counter. And I was like, you know, how much for this? And he told me. And I said, okay, well, I'd like to get it. And he's like, yeah, I can't do that. And I was like, why? He was like, oh, I've got, you know, an appointment coming in. And I was like, well, you can't do it right now. You're not doing anything right now.
Yeah, she's like, you're not doing shit now. And I'm like,
It's like, no.
bitch, I'll marry you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I left without getting tattooed, and I didn't realize that you should make an appointment, you know. So I called in later, and I was like, what's the best time that I could come in for a walk-in? Like, what would you guys recommend? Because I worked at a factory, and it was hard for me to, I lived like an hour away from Indy, and it was kind of hard for me to come in and leave a deposit and all of that. And they said, oh, come in Sunday morning. Usually we're not busy on Sunday mornings.
Gotcha.
So I worked all night. I worked the night shift at this factory, and I got off at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they opened at 10. So I went home, took a shower, grabbed a couple friends, and drove up to Indy. You know, didn't go to bed or anything. And
well, I love it.
Yeah.
Because in that moment, you left without an appointment. When you met him, why do you think you left and then called in for an appointment versus just making one on the spot? And was it you or was it him? Or
I don't think she knew that like you made appointments.
I didn't. Yeah,
Right.
I didn't. So I called in and I was like, I'm not really sure. Like, I was a total layman, you know, and I was young. And,
She just wanted to get a little tattoo,
I
and
just
she
wanted
just
a little
figured you'd come in and
yeah.
you know. But I'm Joshua Carlton, so I'm busy.
Yeah. And you were busy then.
Yeah.
And it was I think when I originally came in, it was like a Friday or Saturday night, so they were slammed, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was like, I don't want to drive up there just to leave a deposit, and I didn't have credit cards or anything at the time. I couldn't leave a deposit with a phone.
Right.
So yeah, they said Sunday morning is usually a good time to come in and just get something. And I was like, okay, great. So yeah, I drove up there Sunday morning. Went in and they were like, it was you and Jason Peacher. And I was like, I'd love to get this piece. And they're like, no, we both have appointments coming in. I was like, motherfucker. You know? It's like, is there anybody else? Is anybody coming in anytime soon? And they said, oh, Jesse's coming in at noon.
Yeah.
And so I left and fucked around in Indy for a couple hours, came back, and Jesse was late, didn't come until 2. So I hung out at the shop for a couple hours. This was a whole drama thing, but I was like, I'm getting tattooed today.
It's
I'm doing this, and this is the shop. I'm not going anywhere else, you know. Yeah. So we sat around and you know, normal like regular shop stuff. They just fucked around until their appointments came in, you know. And so it was kind of fun and stuff. And then you know, we made eye contact a couple times. And then when Jesse finally did come in, I was back getting tattooed, and Joshua got my number from my friend that I brought with me,
which is weird because I never do stuff like that, but.
But then I ended up calling him. He told her, he said, I want her number, but she needs to call me.
Damn.
So I called him. Yeah.
So who do you think zinged for the other first? Josh, was it you? Like, man, there's something about this girl. I'll try and get her number.
I definitely noticed her, like, right, you know, even the first time. So I was stoked when she came back, and I wished I would have had time to do her tattoo. You know what I mean? But I had an appointment. But yeah, she brought like a couple of friends with her, so I definitely took advantage of that. I was like, "What's up with your friend?" You know, and they were like, "Why? Do you think she's cute?" So I was like, "Yeah," and they were like, "She mentioned you too," and I was like, "Oh shit." Yeah, so I was like, and I never really do that, but so I was like, you know, here's my number, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm bad about calling and stuff, but if she's down, have her call me. And I think you called me like the next day.
Yeah, the next day or maybe a couple days later.
Yeah.
So we just went for coffee.
Yeah, we went out for coffee. And then, so right away we connected. Like, it was funny because, you know, we went for coffee in downtown Indy at this place called the Abbey. And then we went for a walk afterward. And, you know, we were just talking and we hung out for hours. Like, it was just instant.
Just clicked immediately.
Yeah. But I always tell people this, like, you know, we're sitting on this little, like, half brick wall talking. And then there's, like, out of nowhere, it's not the 4th of July or anything, but there's literal fireworks going over downtown Indy. And I was like, well, that's a sign, you know. So I drive home and I had this friend that works at a gas station. I used to go hang out with him while I was working all the time, and I went in and he was like, how was it? And I was like, you know, telling him how I was super stoked and stuff, and he was like, don't call him for at least 2 days. And I was like, really? And he's like, you don't want to be overeager. And I was like, okay. You know, and then, but in the same conversation, this friend was like, you're going to marry this dude. You guys are going to have babies. And I was like, and this friend of mine, he just seems to know things. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he just, you know, he's tapped into something. He's always has been. And he was totally right. We got married and have 2 babies. So. And I didn't even plan on having babies when I was at that age. You know, I was like, I'm never having kids. I'm going to go be this, you know, magazine photographer in Chicago. And, you know, I had these plans for myself.
One of her reasons for not wanting kids was she was afraid they'd be ugly.
That was part of it.
For real?
I was like, what if they're ugly? You know, like life's harder for people that are pretty.
Well, Hip knows that.
Yeah, that's why I didn't have kids.
But then we got this, like, we were at a theme park, and there was a machine where you could like take a picture of it and then
mix the two
see what your baby would look like, and it was really fucking ugly
really
too. So we're like,
I was like,
maybe we shouldn't have any kids. I wish we had that picture still.
I do too.
That's
what theme park?
I think it was Kings Island.
Nice.
It might have been Kings Island.
Very cool.
Yeah, me and Megan tried to duplicate the picture of you and Nikki in front of the vortex.
Yeah, that's not there anymore, right?
Nope, it's gone.
Yeah.
That's
good
pretty
one,
cool,
too.
though. That's very cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
How old are your
Have that
children now?
Penelope's 17. She'll be 18 in December.
Okay.
We just got
Just
Penelope a
got her
car.
first car. It's
awesome.
kind of a heart attack.
Yeah, she's actually driving right now.
Yeah.
Dude,
Okay.
her and Nikki look identical.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
We are very similar.
It's weird. It's kind of creepy. Like, so it happened right around maybe last year. She dyed her hair black, and she's a cheerleader.
years
So we went
ago,
to one of
yeah.
her games, and kind of from a distance, I was like, "Oh my God, that's my wife on the field." It's the weirdest thing to see.
It made him
what I
really
mean?
uncomfortable for a
Yeah,
little
it was
while.
really strange. Now
Yeah.
her hair's a different color, which helps. But there's definitely times when they'll walk out of the hallway, and I'm like, "Who's that?"
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Man.
And she's only a year and a half younger than I was when
Yeah,
she
I
met
met.
me.
Yeah, I met Nikki when she
Yeah.
was 19, so it makes
Yeah.
sense.
Wow.
But then
That's
Elliot's 12. He'll be 13 in July.
Okay. July what by chance?
July 6th.
Okay, cool. I got July babies too, so I was just curious.
Nice.
Your birthday's in July, ain't
Yep,
it?
mine's also in July. Yeah, my
July
son. Mine's July 19th.
Nice.
My son's birthday is July 8th, and my daughter's birthday is July 9th.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's
back
interesting.
to back, even
Yeah.
though they're like 6 years apart.
That's crazy.
So yeah, man.
What was your guys' wedding song, or like your song?
So we have a funny story about that.
Yeah. So our wedding, there was it was at my dad's church out in the country in Indiana. And the pastor, she was on vacation or something, and she had this visiting pastor come in from Germany. And it was his very first American wedding that he had ever done.
Wow.
And, we're standing up there, and all of a sudden he's shooing us back. Get back, get back, get back. And we were like,
Yeah, like what's going on?
okay. So we stepped back a little bit, and he whips out a guitar, and he had written this song for us in German.
First of all,
Stands
though,
up there.
it was weird because like even to this day, I'm like, where did the guitar come from?
Yeah, we didn't
Like-
see a guitar set up there.
A full guitar. He's like, stand back, and then just
Yeah.
a guitar appeared, and he just belts out this song.
Yeah.
And everybody's just kind of like looking at each other like in shock, and it was awesome. I don't know the song. I wish I did.
We
That-
have it on paper. He had written it on
okay.
paper, and we have that somewhere. But
And it was
yes,
in German, not
It
English.
was in German.
yeah, so I have no
Okay.
idea what they were singing about. What he was singing about.
Yeah.
It was
That's
pretty awesome.
awesome.
That
It was really cool. I would say probably, we don't necessarily have our song, but maybe the song that resonates with us both would probably be the Same Deep Water from The Cure.
right. Yeah.
I think it really
Ooh. Yeah.
Super big Cure fans.
yeah.
Me
Nice.
too.
Very
Yeah.
nice.
Cool story is like I was definitely one of those Cure fans. It's like we get it. You like the Cure. It's kind of like how Hip vapes. It's like yeah, we fucking get it. You vape.
All right.
And you guys that are listening, I know you can hear him vaping. So I like how Hip tries to do it. Hip tries to vape off camera. He's like, oh yeah, cool. It's like nobody knows, Anyway, I had never had a chance to see them. All my friends had seen them, and I just never had a chance to see them. And Nikki actually got me Cure tickets because they had to cancel it.
They canceled one year, and so people that didn't want to wait till the next year put their tickets up for
Yeah,
sale.
so all I knew was that I get to see them, but I had to wait a year. Mm-hmm. And so I was excited, but it's a year. So anyway, we finally get the day, and we're driving over there, and we walk into this massive stadium, thousands and thousands of people, and I'm like, wait a minute, why are we going here? And it was like so close that
like
I could
4
see the
rows
guitar
down.
strings.
Yeah.
Like I could see. It was like I didn't know it at the time, but it was like $600 a ticket kind of thing, and I was like, oh shit! So like my first time seeing my favorite band in the world. Not only was it a special thing because it was all the original members, it was the whole original lineup.
Jeez.
And and I'm talking like I literally could see the guitar strings like individually. I think I was 4 rows back.
we were like 4
Oh,
rows
wow.
back,
Yeah. So
and then we
yeah.
were standing there, and Soba, the man that makes tattoo machines,
Yeah.
was right behind us.
Yeah,
we met
he-
him.
I don't know how
We were
we.
at the Cure show.
Yeah, there was literally 100,000 people there, and he's like, "Are you Josh?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Are you Soba?" Like you're working for, he made machines for I think,
Workhorse.
Irons. Yeah, and it was
Yeah.
just such a small world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Super random. But that's actually how Joshua discovered post rock, because the band that opened for them was called 65 Days of Static. And we were, whenever you don't know a band that of a show you're not going to, the opening band, you look them up right ahead of time to be like, oh, all right, what are we gonna hear tonight?
Right, and they said there was no
vocalist, so we were like,
I was like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I was blown away.
They were so good.
I was so blown away that I didn't forget about that I was going to see The Cure, but I wasn't expecting to like the opening band, but that sparked my love for what I eventually did. You know what I mean? So that whole show is monumental to me. It kind of changed the course of my life, actually. So.
And I was actually pregnant with our son, with Elliot.
So Elliot was there too, technically.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So, yeah. It's pretty cool.
I think it's always a pleasant surprise to when I don't know the headliner. Like I'll try to keep myself from trying to research or hear anything. And the majority of the time they suck. But there's been a few times where I've like still a fan to this day to bands that had no name that I heard.
Yeah, it's so cool. It was such a thing, and of course, The Cure was amazing. And I've been fortunate enough that she took me years later to see him again. So anytime
we get an opportunity to get tickets for The Cure, I try to jump on.
Yeah, any of you Cure fans out there that are watching, mention it in the comments for sure.
So good. And now our listeners who love Josh so much and want to give something back to him, they may just give you an idea if you want to do something special for Josh and Nichole. Cure tickets.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I will drop whatever.
We'll fly
wherever.
Anywhere. Yeah.
That's right. You really been wanting to get tattooed by Josh? Buy plane tickets and Cure tickets for your town. He might stop by.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So good. Well, you guys have been married for 20 years, got 2 beautiful children, and I've come to realize, I think we all, especially our listeners, every tattoo artist out there that has a girlfriend, a fiance, a wife, a spouse in some way, shape, or form, that along the way, probably like all relationships, we have to figure out how to find our way together as a couple. And I noticed early on doing conventions, I almost saw like 2 different types of relationships. The type of relationship where the artist is there, his spouse is there with him, running the booth, working the booth, in full support, almost as excited about what's happening this weekend than he is. And then the flip side, where artists where their spouses aren't nowhere around, don't come to the shows, and they're trying to like, make that work.
Right.
And of course, there's several in between. And I know from me and my wife, Katie, it took us years to find our footing to this day. And so I feel like even with your wife, because like Hip's wife, she's the type, she likes to go to every show, sit there, run the booth. She's so excited, like real hands-on, totally submerged in the culture and what you're doing today, networking with you, to where you, from an outsider, it seems like a powerhouse couple. And then you got on my end of the spectrum where my wife will never come to a show ever, but supports me really well from home, because I remember there's a time I used to make the story like, man, am I with the right woman? Because she don't seem to give a fuck, know? And it took us years even communicating. So since she wasn't at the show, if I didn't call her or to check in, maybe she would maybe get a little upset, and me trying to tell her like how busy I was and I'm being hit almost sounded like bullshit or was offensive, like you ain't got 5 minutes for me, you know what I'm saying? But we had to work that out. So now when I go to shows, I would call her, but now she just lets me go and doesn't expect a phone call and says, don't even worry about it. Like, you go and do you and have fun, and I'll hear about it afterwards. But it took us years to find the sweet spot for us. But I know, and I'm sure we all know, as tattooers, it presents its own challenges. The lifestyle alone. So, fast forward, here we are 20 years, and you two, other than being a couple and other being married and other than being parents, you and essentially are also like business partners, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And very hands-on together. And how many years did it take for you guys to find your footing in your partnership now, or has it always been kind of effortless and connecting? Or
I mean, as far as the business goes, it's fairly effortless. I mean, it's not to say that it's always every minute of the day roses. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I do
started
see that
I can kind of tell I'm like a...
Yeah.
So like it started early because pretty early on when we met, 9/11 happened. It was that, we were actually on our third date, and I think I've told this story before. I was trying to show off. I took her to Las Vegas. We got stuck there.
For an extra week.
Yeah, you can listen to that on the past episode. But so when I came home, pretty shortly after, I was supposed to go to a convention with Mark. Right?
Yeah. Are you talking about the Massachusetts
Yeah.
trip? Yeah.
Mark and little Brian. And
Mark, Brian, a couple other guys.
Because again, Mark was notoriously late. He was taking forever and forever, and we were kind of just hanging out in the apartment waiting. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Why don't you just come with me? She'd never been, So when the guys finally showed up, I was like, hey, do you care if my girlfriend comes? And they were like, man, this isn't really like, no girls allowed kind of thing. And I'm like, she's cool. She's not going to be a problem, And they were like, whatever. So I brought her along, and so. You kind of early on got to experience conventions and
I got an experience that wasn't like a typical convention at that time though. So the first convention that he ever took me to was Paul Booth's convention in Massachusetts when they had legalized
Tattoo the
tattooing
Earth.
there.
Yeah.
And so that convention,
it was massive.
It was all powerhouses in there.
And it probably influenced Evergreen to a point
absolutely.
Because they were, handmade trophies. Paul Booth had sculpted the trophy. So actually it definitely influenced it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I told her too, I'm like, this isn't how it always
when
is.
we walked in, he was like, don't expect this from other shows.
Right. This is amazing.
Wow.
And again, with Mark being late, he was a full day late, and I didn't say this on the show when Mark was here, but when we showed up, Paul Booth was fucking pissed.
He was livid.
He was like, you're fucking lucky you're a goddamn draw. I'd have you out in the fucking rain, because he was a full day late where his booth was just sitting there empty.
Right.
You know what I mean? And also what Mark had done, bless his heart, Mark, I love you, but he had basically booked a half of a booth
for like 4 artists.
For 4 artists, for me, Brian, for a couple other guys. So this is where Nikki kind of got a good glimpse of my do it at all cost efforts.
He makes shit work.
Yeah, I was like, fuck
no
this.
What it is.
Fuck this. Yeah. I'm going to go find. So I've told you guys I do this before. I took my frame and I flipped it around so everybody could see my photos. Because you have to understand that I was popular-ish.
He was like underground popular.
Nothing like now. So there were definitely plenty of people who didn't know who I was. So I just took my frame, flipped it around, and just walked around like I was looking at shit to buy, waiting for somebody to say, hey man, your work is, whatever, to strike up a conversation. And I'd be like, hey, you got room in your booth? You know what I mean? So
it worked.
So so it was kind of cool because Nikki kind of got to witness my drive of fuck this, I'm not going to wait around for Mark to finish his tattoo so I can have a quarter of a booth space.
Wow.
I went and I made it happen. And so I hooked up with someone who I'm still friends today, Sean Oz Oliver. He's got an awesome YouTube channel. You guys should check it out.
Cool.
And great tattooist, great guy. He lives in Colorado. But anyway, I shared a booth with him. And worked out, just that way I didn't have to wait and have to work. And so I guess I feel like you kind of got to experience.
Yeah, that was like my introduction to the industry, I would say.
Kind of claw your way to the top if you have to, you know?
Yeah, that was my early peek into Joshua's drive, which I later came to find was even more than that little peek.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of tattooers listening, male or female tattooers, their spouse has to put up with a lot because we are sensitive artists at the end of the day. People like to just think, oh, you're just a tattoo artist. But it's been 30 years. And as you listeners know, I talked about it before. I still lose sleep over, I have 2 people traveling tomorrow and the next day. And I woke up this morning thinking about all the possible ways I could fuck up the tattoo and how can I make sure I don't fuck up the tattoo. And, I still think like that. So I don't know if you were prepared for that. You know what I mean?
I was not. So my background, my family, they all work in factories, blue collar, Indiana, kind of, working class family. Yeah. Go to work, and then you leave work at work when you come home. And have dinner with your family and whatever. You don't think about that shit. Until you have to be there the next day.
Right. Yeah.
And so it was weird to have him come home and work still be with him every single minute.
Yeah. So I think that was hard too. When you say how do we communicate that? Because what did I tell you early on in our relationship?
Oh yeah. So this was maybe, he had asked me to marry him already at this point. We had already been planning on getting married and everything. Yeah. And it was, I don't know, maybe 8-9 months into our relationship. And he has this conversation with me where he says, I need you to know that you are not going to be my first priority. It's tattooing, and then my daughter, and then it'll be you. And I was like...
Which, looking back, sounds fucking terrible.
I had to take a while.
I realize that now.
Admittedly, I had to take a while and be like, wow, am I okay with myself being third for the rest of my life?
Right.
I guess ultimately, I decided that was okay.
Yeah.
Well, and of course... if she's extremely priority number one, like I was very wrong.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
So, that changed. Yeah. But, it did take a bit of reckoning to be able to be like, well, God. And, I told him at that time, I said, I don't know. I don't know if I'm okay with that.
Yeah, right.
I had just made, I just made that decision at that time in my life that I was going to make it in tattooing. I was going to be whatever I had dreamt up in my head that was success. And so I was kind of like, I'm going to tell her, you'll never be number one. Looking back, it was an awful thing to say. You know what I mean? Especially mentioning my daughter being, that's just ridiculous. I have a daughter from a previous marriage.
He was just so career driven.
I was very, very career driven. It seemed like the right thing to say. There's so much story here with other things that eventually happen in the future. But Nikki is extremely priority number one. I think what makes us work is we are the true definition of partners.
Yeah. So at that point, when I did decide that, okay, maybe I can be okay with this, I think that is the point in where I was like, okay, if his career is this important to him, then I need to be on board.
Wow.
And I need to be a part of that, basically.
Wow.
So that's where, because we were already working together. We owned a shop and with St. Mark in Bloomington, and I was a piercer there. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm already doing his schedule. I'm piercing here. We own this studio together. Yeah. So if his career is number one, I'm part of this.
Sure.
We have, from the beginning, he's always discussed with me details of tattooing and, theories and ideas. And I wonder if I did this, if this would happen. And I've always been receptive to that. So I think if I weren't the kind of person that I am and had interest in art and tattooing and what he has to say, it wouldn't have worked. That's the kind of person that he is. And I accepted that from the beginning. And that's something that we never put into words, but until recently. And it's like when you're going into any kind of relationship, you have to look at this person for who they are. Yeah. And don't bring your own expectations in and go, am I willing, am I wanting to be with this person and accept them 100% for everything that they are.
Yeah, because if you truly love somebody, you don't really try to change them.
Right.
So I used to have this really bad habit of, I always wanted to know why. So she would say or do something, and I'd go, wait a minute. What did you say?
I need you to explain this.
Why
to me,
would you say it like that? And I realized later on what a dick I was being. Like, that's just how she is. Like, if I love her for her, that's right. Just, whatever quirks, because God fucking, I have a million quirks. So like, what am I doing asking her what she meant when I can't even barely get out of bed sometimes? You know what I mean? Right. So we've definitely talked about that. Like, I believe, if you love somebody, you love them for who they are through and through.
100%. And that's not to say that you're not going to get
you can disagree,
irritated or have arguments.
Because somebody's not going to change because you want them to change, and they're not even going to change if they want to change until they are ready to.
Yeah.
We talk about that on the podcast about being ready or having permission. Nikki has recently discovered some things. She's been tattooing permanent makeup. She's going into some regular tattooing. And she's like, I always knew these things because you've said them for 20 years, but I get it now.
Oh, I understand them on a whole different
level. She gets
level.
it now. So, so I think that, I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but you're not going to change somebody. So again, if you love somebody, love them truly for who they are. It's much, much easier.
Yeah, it's worth the time for anyone to take a moment and look at the whole situation, good, bad, whatever. Yeah. And ask themselves for real, like, and be completely, fully honest with yourself. Yeah. Is this what I want? Right. Am I okay with this thing that might bug the shit out of me? Or Like, you have to really be honest with yourself, because if you're not willing, if you don't love that whole person and you're not willing to take them as they are, then it's probably not going to work.
It's going to be a rough
end.
road.
Yeah.
That's powerful. Such wisdom there. And that's an ongoing process as we evolve and grow and change. Like you both are, I'm sure, different people than what you were when you were 19.
Completely different people.
You know?
Yeah.
So the process of it being in this place of acceptance all along the way. You know?
And that's what I was saying earlier. It's not been all roses. There's been some rough spots, for sure.
I used to have a terrible temper. Like it would just snap like that. And you know,
and it wasn't often.
It wasn't often.
True, Nichole is used to true.
It's been a long time since he's lost his temper with me. It has been.
Okay.
It's like Joshua, the perfect way to describe him. He's like, I'm cool. It's okay. I'm dealing with this. Fuck you. I'm going to run over your dog with my car, you know, or something. Not really that.
That's where I'm going to hit a motherfucker with another motherfucker.
Yeah.
She's been there a couple times and I've come real close to fighting somebody.
Super even keel, and then he just snaps.
Yeah. Right on.
But
So needless to say then, with your first experience going with him to Massachusetts, like the novelty and like the lifestyle that was being presented, like did you kind of like have a romance with it and just were in awe of it or confused at first?
I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I loved it. So I used to, I don't know, I always wanted to get tattooed and stuff, and I was always kind of different than the people that I grew up around, you know. But yeah, no, I loved it. I felt immediately comfortable around tattooers and art. I've always been into art in general, and it was just cool to see like that side of tattooing. I didn't know that tattooing could be like that, you know, like art. Yeah. But yeah, no, I loved it. It wasn't at all like an uncomfortable thing. And I felt like I integrated with all the guys at the shop and stuff.
Yeah, she's really good. She's always been really good at like clicking with everybody. Like it's not like that awkward girl in the back. She like immediately was, you know, friends with everybody. Yeah. So I think it's funny that her first introduction is like Paul Booth and like these huge names, you know, St. Mark. It's like
Philip Liu. I mean, everybody was there.
You know, Philip Liu just meets Philip Liu right early on.
Yeah.
You know, so
wow, that's huge. And I can attest to that because you know, I think some of my earlier dealings with Josh was actually through or directly with Nichole on your behalf. But like an attribute I love when I run into people, and I definitely say Nichole has this gift, which is the gift to make someone else feel comfortable in their own skin. You know, and I really feel like you flow in that gift real strong, whether you even realize it or not, because I'm sure there's so many people, even if like, you know, from your nickname, there are people probably trying to get to Josh and through you, if that's the way they see a way or whatever.
Yeah.
And even if someone has those motives, they're in for a pleasant surprise in meeting and getting to deal with you, let alone do they know that you're running things anyways, you know?
Right. Yeah, there have been a couple people that have tried to get around that, and I'm like, oh, you want to just talk to him directly?
Yeah, they'll be like,
scheduled. You have fun with
they'll be like, I'll just call Josh. And she's like, he doesn't even know his birthday.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny, for like 3 years, I thought I had Joshua Carlton's phone number. It's his name in my phone, but it was really Nikki's. And I didn't find that out until Josh actually gave me his real number.
His real number,
which I was fine with, you know, because I always appreciated the getting to talk with you, Nikki. And I remember being pleasant surprised, like, man, she's you know, one of the good ones for real.
Yeah, I got super lucky.
Yeah, and from an outsider or a consumer or a customer, you know, Josh, you're lucky to have her, whether it's I'm trying to book an appointment or talk or whatever. I remember even a couple of years ago when I was talking to you, Nikki, about potentially having the opportunity to give a seminar or be a part of Evergreen a certain way, and you're just always so pleasant and professional and kind, and it made me feel important or like acknowledged. You know, so I appreciated you from day one for sure.
I'm glad that you say that, because the feeling of not being acknowledged, I definitely have that as you mentioned earlier, Hip, about Megan kind of feeling in your shadow.
Mm-hmm.
I very much have felt that, and it's not anything that Joshua's done. Obviously, he can't help if people act that way with me some of the time, a lot of the time. Right. But yeah, it is nice to feel acknowledged, even if you're not someone that, maybe you don't feel like you're one of the top guys or whatever. Like, for me, I'm like, I don't care about that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to talk to you as a person because you're a person and you deserve acknowledgement. Yeah. Not necessarily saying you personally, Matt, just anybody that I'm talking with,
Yeah. He doesn't deserve acknowledgement.
Not at all.
But and that shows. That's always shown.
Yeah, I don't ever want to make anyone feel sometimes the way that I've been made to feel by certain people. Like, for example, one time there was this magazine at a show, and we were at the same show, and the person, I think she was the editor of the magazine, came up and was trying to talk to Joshua while he was tattooing. And so I tried to kind of step in and be like, can I help you? And try to be that mediator in between to make it a little easier. And I just might as well have been
a ghost.
Yeah. I was not there. I was not worth talking to, looking at, acknowledging whatsoever. And I've gotten better at it. I have a hard time when people treat me that way.
Sure.
I hold a little bit of a grudge.
Yeah.
It's a fault of mine. I have a hard time getting past those things with individuals.
Right.
I've gotten better at that. I've come to accept that, that's just how it is.
Which is interesting too, because little do people know that when they are trying to get into Evergreen, this is who they have to go through.
Right.
And you have not met a tattoo snob until you've met my wife.
Yeah.
I'll be like, this guy's really good. And she's like, eh.
I am a little bit of a snob.
So she takes it real seriously, and and it's not a personal thing. If somebody's like treated her like a ghost, they're not going to not get in, but she'll remember it. But man, she will judge your work hard as fuck. Okay. Because she's been around it, you know what I mean? She's been around it for so long. Even though she wasn't tattooing until recently, she's been around it, and she knows good work, and she's been around incredible tattoo artists all from around the world, so she knows what to look for. But it's just funny because I'm always like, I think that they're good enough, and I think they're going to be really good, and she's like, they're not ready. It's like, okay.
Love it. I love that.
Yeah.
Happy day.
Man.
That's powerful.
So I can't lie. When I started doing conventions, Matt always told me, like, good etiquette is to, one, show up early, leave late, greet the host of the show or whoever's throwing it, shake their hand, some, you appreciate it, ask if they need help or anything. So, like, that's been my formula each time I attend a show. And then I got a chance to do Evergreen and went out there, and we came out early the first time I went, and I was like, well, sweet, this is a chance for me to, like, come and possibly help. Totally fangirl over Joshua Carlton, because I met him the night before at some pizza place, so the next day I'm thinking, like, I'm going to be able to, like, help do this and basically walk around and fucking ask him, like, how quick, where do you run your voltage at, and all that fun shit that every tattoo artist loves people to ask them. And he was nowhere to be found. Riley was nowhere to be found. It was Nikki and it was Aaron. And I slowly started noticing that, like, when fires need put out, like, everyone's going to them. And I've just always kind of been stumped, but yet in awe of that, because just to be able to do a job, and I don't know, in my mind, my expectation, if I was doing what you guys did, I would have, like, a grudge or kind of be butthurt at like my significant others because, you know, you guys are basically bearing all the weight of the stress, it seems, or it appears to be to me. Not saying that Josh and Riley don't have a part and they do what they do, but it just seems like, you know, the first number I got, it was I got it saved in my phone as Aaron and Nikki Evergreen, and I'm the type of tattoo artist that sends text messages for the most stupidest simple shit. If I would just read a couple paragraphs lower, I would get my answer, and you guys are on it. One of you two always message me back, and it's polite, and it just seems like I don't know, if I was in that position and wasn't like the main face of the act, I would kind of like be flustered with that, I guess, if any of that makes sense. But
we talk shit about you guys behind your back. No, we each at Evergreen, you know, it's honestly kind of a magic formula because we each have our own roles that we really do well. With that company. And so that's how I think partly how it's worked so well. You know, Joshua has his own thing and Riley his, and Aaron and I kind of work in simpatico together. You know, whenever she's busy with whatever she's doing, I can kind of pick up, and then she does the same for me. You know,
we can really tell too, like, we'll be like, we need to do this for Riley or for like we can all tell when somebody
needs a little extra.
Yeah. It's kind of like a band, you know what I mean? It's just like it was the perfect storm. You know, and I don't ever want to just call them our partners because they're really some of our best friends.
Oh yeah,
right.
But it's really cool how we work together because we just all have our own way of doing things. But Nichole has always been that way with, you know, very, very professional with clients and reaching out and very timely. People are always like, oh, I can't believe how fast you got back to me because, you know, tattoo artists we're so like slow and get back, and it's always an assistant, and they're just like, they'll text Nikki and boom, 5 minutes later there's an answer. And so I think it's part of the success. I definitely appreciate all she does, you know.
And it's been weird this last year, you know, with COVID and everything. I think that we definitely have not been checking things quite as much, but now that it's looking like we're going to actually be able to have it in October, Aaron and I have been kind of, you know, reconnecting over some things, and it looks like the gears are turning again finally.
I'm excited.
So. That's awesome. It's so good to see, good to hear. And I even noticed you have you all have a grace about you. So like whether we're at the World Championships in Vegas, when I was out at Evergreen, and most people don't realize everything's going on behind the scenes, i.e. the stress that you guys are under.
Vegas particularly was stressful.
And Vegas was stressful.
But you know what? It couldn't tell from looking at you.
Right.
Awesome.
You know, you both carry a grace, you know, about you, even if there's some shit not going right or stressful. But there's like a strength that you walk in with, the grace to where it doesn't seem stressful.
Yeah. Nikki and I have come up with this saying, like, we'll just go for a little walk, and we always, right before we walk back into the room, we'll go, well, it's not happening.
Yeah.
There you go. All right.
And it's like, you know, it's like we're just living the moment. Like, we're going to get through this, and it's going to be awesome.
It's not happening, so we just deal with it as we can and move on.
Yeah, and, you know, we learn from our mistakes. Oftentimes we'll have a vision for something, and just because of life, the vision you started with isn't necessarily what comes to fruition. But I think we're really good at putting ourselves in other people's shoes.
Yeah.
Because sometimes
you are particularly. I'm getting there. I'm still growing. But I have a little harder time sometimes.
It's easy to like be like, why the fuck would they do that? And I'm like, well, let's wait a minute now. You know, I heard that his, you know, this was going on in his life or whatever. You know, so I do try to do that, and it makes things make. I just want things to make sense in my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And usually I can go, yeah, you're right. But sometimes I'll go, oh, fuck, I'm still.
Yeah.
You're right.
You know?
Guess who's not allowed at any of our shows?
I love it. Well, and kind of what you were touching on a minute ago, Hip, of like, you know, there's pros and cons to, you know, and Nikki, you saying like being treated like a ghost to certain people and motives and all that shit. But the plus side of that is, you almost get to see people's true colors.
And
be the eyes for you and for Josh. Because an asshole, if they're in Josh's presence, might put on their best behavior. But you get to be the eyes for both of you to see this person's true character.
Exactly.
Which could be a plus.
It has been.
Yeah, I've seen her tell me, she's like, I get some red flags from this person. I'm like, they were so cool to me. And she's like, of course they were cool to you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, no. And that's gone, not just for people as people, but for clients too. I've been doing his schedule for the better part of 20 years. And so the emails come in and I read through them and stuff. And I've gotten to where I can go, you don't want to work with this person. Yeah. And every now and then he'll go, oh no, it'll be fine. And a lot of times that person ends up not getting tattooed.
Yeah. And it's all from actual things that have happened in life. I mean, we have some crazy stories. Like, do you remember the woman that slept with one of my coworkers just to try to get tattooed by me?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. He's like, I might be able to get you in. And Nikki had already told her no. And she sleeps with this guy. It's just crazy.
Wow.
To try to get tattooed by me. Fully admitted that's why she did it. It was just like, what the fuck is even happening?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Gave up the nookie.
Or the email that said they couldn't get into Valhalla until they got tattooed by me. And she's like, well,
that was a big no.
She's like, I guess you're not getting into Valhalla.
Manipulation out the gate. Yeah.
That sounds crazy to say those things out loud, but those are real emails.
You're not going to guilt me into getting you an appointment. Come on.
Go ahead.
I've actually been tattooing people, and Nikki will show up at the shop and she'll be like, I told him no. Yeah. I told him no about that. You know what I mean? Because I'm doing a tattoo and I'm like, man, I'm not really feeling this client. She's like, I told him no, and he fucking snuck around the back. He emailed you, didn't he? And I'm like, yes.
Wow.
He messaged you on Instagram. So any of y'all motherfuckers that go behind my back and email me, message him on Instagram, you better not, because I'll know you did it on purpose.
Oh shit, man, that's hilarious. Gosh, what are some of the with all the stress of Evergreen, the Invitational, the Educational, the Vegas, everything you guys got to put on? What's some of the most things that's most rewarding about it all? That no matter what, you're like, man, this right here is what makes it all worth it. Well, what are some of the things that just like fuck?
I think for me, if you don't mind if I go first, is we talked about vision earlier, and we just had a vision for what if a convention was like this. And I'm not saying Evergreen is the best. There's amazing shows, and I tried to piece together Evergreen from my favorite parts of shows. Hell City is a huge influence, of course. Love Derb, love what he does, known him for years, honored to call him a friend.
Yeah.
I feel like it kind of happened. It kind of paid off. Right before the very first Evergreen, I got a hold of Gabe from Tattoo Now, who puts on the Tattoo Paradise show. Extremely well done show, and he's like, man, I just want to give you a heads up, conventions are super fucking hard. He kind of spooked me a little bit, and that first year of Evergreen, a lot of things went wrong, but a lot of things went really, really right. And at the end of the day, we could have had wrestling and dirt bike jumping and concerts galore and all that, and paid a ton of money to have somebody there, but we just made it about tattooing, and we took a huge chance making it just about tattooing.
Yeah.
Thank
There's
you.
a place for shows like that. That's just not the show that we wanted to put
on.
Yeah,
I love going to shows like that.
Yeah.
But so for me, what's rewarding is it worked. You know what I mean? I appreciate tattooing so much. Tattooing has taken such good care of us that, it sounds cheesy. I wanted to give back, but I did. I wanted to leave a mark, you know. And Evergreen is about to be in its 7th.
Yeah, last year was supposed to be the 7th, but it'll be this year.
And it's something that I'm really, really proud of. I'm proud of what it is for tattooing. Yeah. And a lot of that is artists like Hip that we did have a vision for, that Nikki didn't swat down.
That's what I was going to say.
Grow.
For me,
thanks, Nikki.
is seeing a potential in someone. So, there are some artists that I'll look and I'll go, they're not quite ready. But there are these other artists that, may not be at the level of some of the top guys there, but I see something there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take a chance on this one. And then a few years later when they're at the show and they are up here with these guys.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And we've had a few people be like, you gave me a chance and it really helped. So I love that. Like seeing something in someone and watching that grow.
Yeah.
Like,
Come on.
that's just, I loved it. I loved it.
Hey, Nikki, you gave me a chance and it really helped.
There you go.
Good. I'm so glad.
For
Thank you
real,
for telling me
though.
that.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
We look for people with what I always call it with a motor. You know, it's
Yeah.
like I appreciate that your tattoo work is good, but your interaction with me and my wife, I want you to have a motor. I want you to have an incredible drive. You either have it or you don't. This is some David Goggins stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And when you have a motor and you have some good work, there's a much better chance that you're going to get in. You know, like we put on the Boise convention as well, and we always tell people that's your foot in the door. Like it's a much smaller show, but you know, and your chances are a little bit easier to get in.
Your chances are a little
We're still
easier
picky.
getting into Boise. Yeah,
Right.
we don't just let just anybody in. Like, you know, you were saying about that other show earlier.
But if you come work Boise and you're cool, and we, you know, because we go to dinner with people, we don't just like, you know people. Like we really try to, you know, and so we're just like, hey, this is one of them. And you know, Hip was definitely, Hip's a great example.
Oh
of
yeah,
that.
yeah.
You came to us good. I'm not saying we're responsible anyway, but now you are
No.
absolutely fucking fantastic. I mean, look at your career.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So I guess you gotta, I don't know, if I see that someone wants it, you know,
Yes.
like they've got that motor,
Get in
they
there
want
and
it,
get
they get in there and get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's rewarding for me to see that, you know, they did it, they got it, you know, they got in there and they got it.
And that's what it was about. So I guess a long explanation, but for what I'm proud of is watching. It's like watching kids grow up.
It is.
Oh, he
It
got his
really
driver's
is.
license.
Yeah. And he ended up winning an award last year, which
Yes, he
was
did.
fucking huge, like getting a cap and gown from
I think that was crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy one.
To win an award in a show, period, is a big deal. They're not easily. But to win an award at Evergreen, that's
Man.
a whole nother level of something to celebrate and stop for a minute and be like, dude, you did that. You know what I'm saying?
That's
it's
awesome.
real cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that.
We put a lot into those awards.
Yeah, we hand make them together.
yeah.
You know, a lot of people will give me credit. Like, you know, honestly, Nikki's out there in the garage with me every minute, helping
Yeah.
me make these, coming up with the ideas to be as creative as possible. We just wanted them to be special. Like we could just go buy trophies.
Yeah,
But
right.
I just thought, man, like a handmade, hand sculpted.
And we got that
It
idea
means
from
them.
Paul
We got
Booth's
that from
show.
Paul
You know,
Booth, yeah.
we saw those trophies, how gorgeous they were, and just like how much they meant to people because he personally, you know, put his heart into them.
Yeah.
So that's why we decided to do that with Evergreen. We would do it for Boise, but it's just so much work. It's really, it's a lot. So
I want Evergreen to be, you know, there's a lot of shows out there where you'll be like, yeah, man, it was so awesome at this show. We kicked it with our friends and we had these late night, we stayed up and got drunk and we, you know, these good memories. That's really cool. But I want Evergreen to be the show that you're like, that's the show that everything clicked.
everything clicked. I learned so much.
I went and watched Matt Jordan tattoo for 7 hours and I came home and I'm like a changed artist because of that, because of Matt Jordan, because of Dennis Savak, you know what I mean? Because of Daniel Rocha, because of these artists. You know, Mark Waskero from other countries, you know, like. Yeah.
And that's something else I love about our show, too, is that I feel like, for the most part, now we've had a couple of... our dog. We've had a couple of egos here and there. But for the most part, as high a caliber of artists as we have there, I don't feel like there's a ton of egos in the room. You know what I mean? Like, most of them are approachable. You can walk up, you can talk to them. They're going to talk to you.
And everybody's always had our back. Like, you know, Riley and I don't put up with bullshit at the show. Yeah. And 9 times out of 10, when we have to remove somebody and, you know, we have to get a little bit in your face about it, I guess.
Yeah, I don't want to say physical, but...
No, because, but I'll turn around and there's Hip and there's Johnny Black and there's Cody. It's like, where did you even... You're like the guitar at my wedding, you know what I mean? It's like, where did you guys come from? Yeah. And, you know, I've always liked a certain core circle of friends, and Evergreen became like this big core circle of friends because we've all been around. In fact, a lot of people have a 5-year pin that have been there, you know. Yeah,
that came the first 5 years. After the first 5 years, we had these special pins made for all the artists that had been there for every year, the first 5 years, we gave them out, and it was the logo for that year with the 5 on it and everything. But only the artists that had been there all 5 years in a row.
Yeah, the idea was to, and that's why it's hard to get into Evergreen, because most people continue coming back, and we don't want to make it any larger. Because we want everybody to be busy. It's one big tattoo shop, right? You can't put too many people in your shop.
Yeah.
Then nobody makes any money. You know what I mean?
Right.
Okay.
Because one thing I will say proudly is when we walk around Evergreen, people are fucking busy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And it's weird because this will be the 7th year, so you guys got some years, some experiences, a lot of lessons under your belt, but that's still in the industry considered a younger show still.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's even
Which is
considered a
awesome.
smaller show to us. It seems so big, but I love the size of it.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in like the giant mass. I like to go to them, and all the respect for the people, because we know how hard it is. Because basically we'll put on Evergreen, take 2 weeks off, and then Nikki is back at it. I mean, we're talking
planning
a year in work. It's a lot.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Jeez.
So I know Hip, you were asking about shows. Honestly, I would talk to her over me. Like she's going to have the answers for you if you wanted to eventually do something, for sure.
Oh, are you thinking about putting on a show?
Yeah,
It's a bucket list thing, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, we've always
totally
talked
is.
about it here in our city. It's been one of his dreams. Huh?
Yeah, and I'm the dude that's I'd rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies, and quality versus quantity. So like, just something extra, and not only that too, but now in the last few years, and Evergreen was one that actually made me start to notice this. But the quality of shows I pick to do is important.
Yeah.
Because that can reflect, me somewhat. So, I just, me and Matt have thrown the idea around, and it's funny because every time he talks about it, he will say like, is this still like a dream of yours or something you want to happen? And I'm like, yeah, it totally is. And I basically told him like, we can go the rest of our lives without you ever having to ask me that, because it's always going to be a yes.
Yeah.
It's just more so like, when?
Sure. Yeah. So planning. I mean, you can't plan for everything, obviously, but you were saying quality over quantity. A good example of that is a show that Joshua goes to. I've not been able to go to it, but I've never heard a bad thing about the show. It's Humboldt at the Blue Lake Casino, and it's usually in February. And that, I guess, is a really small show.
Yeah, Ted and Amy Marks,
but the
love
quality of the show is above and beyond. Everybody loves this show. Everybody. And it's one of the smallest shows that I've heard
There's
of.
literally like 30 booths.
Yeah.
It's tiny, but it's so
tiny little
fucking
show,
fun.
but everybody loves it. And it's one of those shows that's hard to get into because the people that go, they just keep going back every year because they just love it so
And that really
much.
tells you something, you know what I mean? Because it's not like the booths are cheap, you know what I mean? So that really tells you something when someone shows up, pays a year in advance, stuff like
year
that.
after year.
You're doing something right, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
That's awesome. Well, yeah, your guys' show has had hype and buzz around it, rightfully so, since day one. And I know there's probably a slew of artists that it's on their bucket list to get to work or be invited to your show. But at the same time, if you're sitting here saying we have no plans on making it bigger, then there's there's a cutoff there. At some point, there's a cutoff. If you're going to keep that line, the cutoff, that there may always be artists that wish they could get in that show that may never be able to get to. Who knows?
Right.
yeah, it's one of those things, because it's like, it doesn't mean that you're not good enough, because my God, there's amazing tattoo artists out there. There's just a cap, and we really, really respect the people that have already put the work in. We respect the people that have been there since they're always going to have that opportunity to get those booths first.
And that's what we do is, so in general, the show's in March, right?
Yeah.
So what we do is we send out invitations, physical invitations that we make, usually in September, like the end of August, early September. And we give those people that get the physical invitations, which are the people that came the year before, we give them until Halloween to book their booth. And then on Halloween, we open up for new submissions.
Wow.
So,
if you've got a motor, like I said, and you're on top of it, you do have a shot.
Right.
My dream, and I haven't really even talked to you much about this, is one day to do Evergreen Europe. So that would be a good opportunity to get a whole new line of artists. So.
Wow.
But we'll live there too then.
The look on your face and the smile is just like we just peppered in a whole different level of work.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
We're leaving the continent. Yeah, I did. Like, oh, great. And what's next? Zimbabwe?
Yeah, him and Riley are the big idea guys, and Aaron and I are sitting over here going, oh, how are we going to make this work?
Execute. I love that, though.
Yeah.
You love that. I love it so much. And, we hear, everything's evolved and changed in culture, even with equal rights and everything. And even the topic of women and how women are treated in the tattoo industry, how they used to be treated, and the horror stories, how that's changed. And now we're in a season of, even though those stories still exist, that like more than ever, women are killing it in the tattoo industry.
They absolutely
Women are really, really destroying it right now.
Yeah,
Kelly
which
Doty.
is
I mean, there's so many names.
Cool and so
I love
awesome.
it.
Yeah,
look at my sister Jamie Carlton. She's phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's so cool because she didn't try to do any of my type of style. She's like,
well, she even took on, her husband's name. I believe it was before they were married.
Specifically to just
so that it wasn't like, oh, that's Joshua Carlton's sister. She didn't want to ride his coattails.
Wow.
She wanted
she did her own
shit,
thing, and
she's
I'm so beyond proud of her. I'm beyond proud of her.
Yeah.
I remember people being like, "Oh, he's really your brother. I thought you were like, oh, my brother." Like, and she's like, "No, we used to take baths together." You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
So so just speaking of women tattooers, like they are talk about lighting the path. It's happening hard right now with women in tattooing.
So good,
sure.
so beautiful. Yeah. And any of you listeners out there, especially you female artists that have had some poor experiences, and especially those of you that are maybe hanging on because you're a victim from having been treated poorly, just to encourage you how much has changed, that we stand for you. And it's funny because not only are we talking about tattoo artists that are killing it, the female tattoo artists that are just killing it in the game, but we even on this episode have brought up a couple shows. Like you brought up the Massachusetts show, which is in our earlier days, right? And which is really ran by a woman. It's Joe and Irene, but really Irene, is running that show behind the scenes.
Exactly.
And now we're talking right now about one of the greatest tattoo conventions in the country, the Evergreen Invitational, and it's ran by women.
100%. Yeah.
I mean, not to take anything from Josh and Riley, they definitely have their roles, but as far as all the inner workings,
we're the face of it, but
Aaron and I are behind it.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think that's just a cool thing to shine a light on for a second.
Yeah. And it's cool too because in the very beginning she was like kind of just doing it as a job, and then she fell in love with it. She really enjoyed it. She's really good at it, so she's like, I like doing this.
Right. Well, and that was part of going back to being married to this super successful tattoo artist. It was kind of a thing for me for a long time. I felt like I'm just a housewife, and being a housewife, first off, it's a huge job, but forever I felt like it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Like I didn't contribute enough and stuff. And it was never him. It was just me in my own head. Yeah. Feeling that way. Yeah. And then at the beginning of Evergreen, it kind of rolled into that, and kind of going back to what you were saying about Megan Hip, her feeling kind of overshadowed. I felt like, well, I'm just a worker bee in this business. You know what I mean? Like I'm just a worker bee and I don't really matter. And it wasn't anybody making me feel that way. It was just me in my own head. Yeah. And then I finally came around. It took me probably 3 years to own it. Like, this is my business too. And I'm running this shit. Yeah. I work hard and I'm doing a good job,
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, not to say that we never, we always are open to learn what we can do better. And for example, there was an artist, I don't know, I think it was the 6th year. I think it was the last year, actually. And somehow she had gotten overlooked. And I felt terrible about it because I've definitely been overlooked before, But somehow she had gotten overlooked. So how we've always run it with the invitations is that whoever it was that set up the booth the year before is the person that the invitation gets sent to.
Okay.
Right. And that's the person that gets the emails, with information or whatever. That's just how we've always done it. It's easier than trying to keep track of every single person in every single booth.
I bet.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, this woman, she had been every year and somehow got overlooked for the pin. So that's where it all started. She was upset because she got overlooked for the pin. I understand. That sucks. We ended up getting a pin to her, but she was overlooked. Well, then the next year, so one of these years, she had set up the booth. So she had been the one to get the emails and the invitations. But then the following year, a friend of hers was the one that did it. So that year, this last year, she didn't get the emails and stuff. And she was upset because we had run out of booths and she hadn't gotten one. And her friend hadn't, told her, hey, I'm getting a booth for Evergreen. You want in or anything like that.
Right.
Well, she was left out,
Yeah.
And she was like, what the hell? I've been every year.
Yeah.
Why didn't I get an email?
Yeah.
And so I was, sitting here going, well, shit, this is how we do it. If you've been every year, you should know that the person that set up the booth last year is the one that gets the emails.
Yeah.
But then it did make me stop and go, you know what? Maybe we need to just start keeping track of every person in the booth. And so they get emails. That way, if their friend isn't getting it, then at least they can get one,
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to learn from our mistakes and own our mistakes for sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, she was upset enough that she won't be returning. I understand,
Yeah.
I feel bad about it, but it is what it is.
Right.
But we learned from that and unfortunate that it happened, but thanks to her, we've changed a little bit the way that we're doing things so that doesn't happen to somebody else.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
It's all about growth.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. You said something interesting a few minutes ago that how you were in your own head and your perception, even how you were viewing yourself, and you were like, and then about 3 years in, I finally owned it, right?
Yeah.
When you finally owned, like, now wait a minute, and you did say like it wasn't Josh or anyone else making you feel like
Not at all.
whatever. That was mainly you in your own head.
Yeah.
When you finally that clicked and you owned it, what did you notice change all around you, even like how you now show up? When in that moment of you owning it, did you notice a change in you and then therefore everyone else?
Somewhat, yeah. So once I felt more like that, I owned it. I enjoy it more. Like that's when I was able to feel like, I don't want to say feel good about doing it, but that's when I was able to like go, I want to nurture this, instead of it just being, well, this is my job. This is part of what I do.
Right.
Like I want to nurture this and I want to take care of it. And I did get a little more, instead of being the ghost. Now I'm still kind of the ghost a lot of the time, but I will say that once I started doing that and being kind of at the forefront, I do have more people going, oh, I know who you are,
Yeah. Right.
And I noticed too, like with COVID and everything, and once we weren't able to have Evergreen, instead of her being like relieved that she gets a break, she was like, man, I really was ready to attack this, you know what I mean? So really found herself truly missing it, you know what I mean? So that's pretty cool to see that hunger there, you know what I mean?
It is. And I think that's important for all our listeners, and maybe it's back to the permission thing, for us to own our own deal and speak our own truth and own it, because it's at that point is when we actually show up differently in our back in our power,
Absolutely.
And we all need you too. Like everyone that's listening, like I'm sure Aaron, Riley, and Josh needed you to get to that point, to own it and to own your part so that you can show up and have the confidence to really contribute to the vision, because you now have given yourself permission to feel an equal part of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then that's trickled into other parts of my life. Like, I won't get too personal necessarily, but, I've always had, this, oh, you can't do that mentality. Oh, no, you're not going to be able to do that. You can't do that. And it's always been my own thing. Joshua's always been the most supportive person ever. He's like, if you want to, you decide you want to, make didgeridoos for a living. If that's what you love, I'm going to support you. He's the most supportive person. But I've always been in my own way. I'm so afraid of failing at things that I don't even let myself get started.
Wow.
Yeah. But I found that you know, it takes me forever to do anything. But that was kind of the beginning of allowing myself to go, you know what? You can do shit, you know? Even though you're a quarter of Evergreen, your quarter makes it work, you know? So if I want to, you know, try tintype photography or cosmetic tattooing or whatever.
Yes.
Do it, you know, don't be so afraid of failing that you get in your own way. I've always gotten in my own way my whole life, and I'm finally getting around to where I've given myself permission, like, you're not going to be perfect. Like so the way my brain works, I saw a meme that nailed it perfectly that his sister shared, and I was like, oh my God, that's me. And it was like, no work, just best. Like, if I'm not great at it right away, then I'm like, oh, you might as well give up. You're never going to be great at it. And of course, shit doesn't work that way. You know, nobody's ever just great at it, you know?
Yeah, I always have to remind her that I sucked at tattooing in the beginning. I wasn't just automatically good.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, I do think that in my own brain, I'm like, well, you've been around it for 20 years. You see him painting and doing this and doing that. He has long, drawn-out conversations with you about exactly what he's doing. Why can't you do it? You know, you have the knowledge. Yeah. Because I do, you know, I could sit and talk technique and whatever for painting and tattooing until the cows come home.
She can build coil machines from the ground up, like completely, like literally.
I used to sit and buid them in our living room when we made machines, you know. But just because I have that knowledge, I haven't for very long now been putting it into practice. So I need to give myself that grace and that patience to be able to build my skill. But my brain gets in its own way sometimes, going, why aren't you better yet? Why aren't you better yet? Even though it's only been 5 months, you know?
Yeah.
But
jeez,
you know who you sound like, Nikki?
Who?
Me.
Yep.
Yeah. And
you
Matt and Josh, every artist I know. Yeah.
So it's like you are a tattooer. Holy shit.
Totally.
Yeah, he's always telling me, he's like, you need to be realistic. You know, you've been doing this 5 months. You're not gonna, you know, I look at these other cosmetic artists that just have the most perfect, you know, little hair strokes, and I'm like, why aren't my hair strokes that wispy?
I was sitting here thinking, you know how many tattooers after this episode are going home to break up with their spouse? They're like, I need to find a Nikki. There's somebody like, man.
And on that note, like, it's completely okay if you don't have a partner that is as into what you're into. There's absolutely ways that works as well. That's not the only way. That's the way that works for us. And if had it not been that way, we likely would have navigated whatever life we needed to.
We would have figured it out. I think the biggest thing is being supportive of each other no matter what you're wanting to do. Communication, not only like communication, but really understanding each other. Like, if you're not understanding, taking the moment to try and understand each other, because, you know, we've definitely been at odds pretty strongly a couple times and been like, what? But then once we're able to take a minute and figure out what the other person's saying and truly understand it, then that really helps.
And you learn a lot about your partner when you go through, like, when I was in the hospital for surgery for an esophagectomy because of the cancer, she was there every step of the way. And even though we had been together a long time, like, we're not that couple that, like, while she's brushing her teeth, I'm using the toilet. We just never been that couple. But, like, in the hospital, you know what I mean? Like, I'm, you know, fucking throwing up, and she's like, you know, helping clean me up, and like, it's not an attractive quality. And so I'm like, well, she's never gonna find me attractive again now that, you know, I've got fucking plugs sticking out of my stomach or pulling shit out of my throat. And so you really get to know each other. You really get to, like, even though we've known each other for so long, we get to know each other on a deeper level. And not saying to go through that to get to know your partner, but that was an experience.
Yeah, it's funny. We've definitely lived out our vows, the whole sickness, health, rich or poor.
You're right. Yeah.
We really, we've lived that. But I think that we've been together many, many lifetimes. So
yeah, we talk about that. Like, you know, some people this might be a bit woo-woo for people, but I do believe in reincarnation, and I believe that we've been together for many lives.
Yeah.
So cool. There you are.
I
love it.
Like the John Wick, or what is it? John Hancock, or wait, is it John? Yeah.
You talking about Keanu Reeves?
I mean, I would marry Keanu Reeves.
There was a movie about that where it's like they're two. It is It's John Hancock with Will Smith, and he meets Jason Boatman and his wife. Actually, it was his wife in past lives, and they always
I've not seen
reconnect.
that.
Oh, it's a great movie.
Yeah, actually, there was a movie similar that I made Joshua watch on our second date. He came over to my house, and it's called What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like we've lived that for sure.
Wow.
Josh, you ever taken like maybe Nicole wasn't there during a tattoo, and you took some pictures and you're stoked, and you like go home to like lay down and Netflix or chill or whatever you guys do, and you're like, babe, check this out, I killed it today, and she looks at it and she's like, it kind of sucks.
I've never seen his work suck, so
She's
no.
not.
I was going to say, she's smarter than that. Have you been listening to the woman? She wouldn't say that. I'm just kidding.
She's not said it sucks, but she's not reacted in the way that I hoped. And I have to remind her, I'm like, this is not a sexy part of me, but I am a fucking vulnerable
He's very
artist.
sensitive.
And it happened yesterday, actually. I did a tattoo that I was really happy with. And she had a lot going on in her own head.
Yeah.
So usually she'll come in and I'll kind of wipe it off, and she'll be like, oh, wow, or whatever, and she just didn't really say anything. And so I immediately was like, brr, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. And it literally took me and it's embarrassing to say this as a grown ass man, that I need my wife's support of that to understand that if it's good or whatever.
Yeah.
But she has her own life, and it's not always the Josh show. You know what I mean? And that was something I think I had to learn, that because it can be the Josh show for sure. Like, I will definitely let that happen. She had her own things going on, and it's like, of course the tattoo is good. You've tattooed for 30 years and you tried really hard and you care about your clients. So she didn't react because she had her own things going on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's powerful. You guys have brought up a few things peppered into tonight's conversation. You've hit on this big thing called communication. You've touched on acceptance, and those two things are never ending. They're always, as we go in and out of seasons and whatever. But Josh, you even touched on something even earlier in your relationship, how you critique her on how she just said that, right? And what did that mean, right?
Right.
And so we as human beings, by almost default, are meaning-making machines, right? And we're so quick to attach meaning to anything and everything, which alters our way of being. Talk about being in your own head, and and we've had to grow and are always growing, still growing on making proper distinctions. And there's a difference between what actually really just happened or what she just really said versus the meaning we attach to it and now make it mean. She didn't give you the reaction yesterday that you wanted, and what does that mean? Or or when she, when you would ask her, like, why did you say it like that, almost as if you were attaching some sort of meaning. And then you guys have said time and time again, it wasn't until you authentically communicated to get clear on where the other person's coming from, which clears so much up, but you can let go of the unnecessary meanings that you attach to shit that we all do.
Absolutely.
She's really good. One, Nikki's the most honest, genuine person I've ever met in my life. So if she says something, I can believe it. So that helps tremendously.
Yeah, and I will be honest. Like, if there's something, I'm like, he'll be like, "What do you think about this here?" And I'll be like, "Well, what if you did?"
Yeah, she will say I think you could darken it up there, or like I remember there was this one tattoo I was doing where the reference, it was a girl's face and she had a really cool scar in the reference, and I just pussed out and I was like, I'm not going to do the scar. I made some bullshit excuse, and she was like, you need to do the scar. And it was the coolest part of the tattoo for sure. But she called me out on it. That's why I wrote my book. I said it before. She called me out on that. I was telling everybody. I probably told you, Matt, years ago. It's like, oh, I'm writing a book. And she was like, bullshit.
I was like, you're not writing a book. Stop telling people
Stop telling people you're writing a book. So I was like, oh, shit.
And
so I fucking
literally started.
I wrote a book. But she was honest, and she's like, right in front of people, she was like, stop telling people. She's like, do you had an idea to write a book? I ain't seen fucking pen to paper though.
No.
You know what I mean? So
so good.
So she called me out on it.
He used to get so upset with me because he would embellish stories.
Yeah, like if we were driving 50, I would say we were driving 70, and she'd always be like, she'd be like, no, they weren't.
Fucking up the story.
Right. She also she's good at, when you talked about attaching feelings,
Yeah.
What Nikki will do oftentimes is she'll say, you're projecting that on me. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Because, she'll be like, no,
He'll be like, I feel like you're thinking this. I feel like you're feeling this. And I'm like, I'm not. You're
because
when
people will say, you make me feel like this. And it's like, not really.
Right.
Like, Nikki can't make me, I can make myself feel a certain way.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? But again, I'm lucky because she's extremely, extremely just honest and lying and deceiving and all that. It's very much foreign to her. I don't think I've even heard you try to tell a lie before.
No, I get so uncomfortable.
Like the whole I don't know what to do with my hands. She'd be like,
you'd be able to see through it.
You would know right away.
Yeah.
It would be funny, actually.
That's good. I like it.
That's
not good at it. I wouldn't be good at it.
That's awesome. Well, Nikki, even a few minutes ago when we were talking about, again, back to when you owned it, and how you're so quick, and how these boys were saying, you sound like a tattoo artist. You are, because you're basically in your own head a perfectionist. And that's why you'll say like, oh, I can't do that, or if I can't be the best or whatever, which we all deal with, myself included. So many of our listeners out there, I was always the guy that was a perfectionist. If I'm going to do something, I'm all in. We're going to do it big. It's going to be the best. And until I can figure out how to do that, if we can't pull it off like that, then we're not doing it. And we're not going to do it until it can be the best. And I've had to change my motto in the past year and a half, 2 years, and switch it up to this thing called imperfect action, right? Because I was always wanted it to be the best. And again, if it wasn't going to be the best, I'm not doing it until then. Well, that caused me to do a whole lot of nothing. I wasn't doing a lot of the things I knew I was called to do, wanted to do, because I couldn't figure out how to make it the best yet, right?
Yeah.
And it was some mentors in my life that helped me take imperfect action. Now, surely I'm still trying to do the best and be the best. But the difference is the fact of taking imperfect action in the doing is when clarity comes. In the doing is when we can actually grow, learn, and actually make it the best.
Totally.
But so oftentimes, especially us artists, we won't even take a step or start walking until we get a crystal ball to see the path on how to make it perfect. And life doesn't give us that luxury. And so to take imperfect action, say ready or not, I'm fucking going for it. There's where the magic, I've noticed, starts to show up in our lives.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so when we met, I was all about photography. I was going to go to college and, for photojournalism, this and that. And Joshua, I had, money to saved up to go to school. And Joshua was like, well, you already take great pictures.
Yeah.
Let's just open a studio, And I came from a family that it was like, you can't do that. Not that my family was unsupportive, but, you go to school, you get a job, the A, B, C, this is how you do it. And Joshua is so unorthodox in his thinking of anything I'd ever.
I'm like, jump into that shit.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, okay. And we opened a photography studio.
Wow.
And it was great. It was successful, while we had it open. And then we decided to move. And that was, our thing. But, photography was my first love of art and everything, and I haven't really gotten back to that. And then I think it was the second or third year of Evergreen, we had a tintype photographer there, and they're so cool. And it goes back to my love. So I kind of fell out of love with photography when the phones came out. Everybody had a phone, and everybody's a photographer. Everybody's like, oh, I'm a photographer. I got an iPhone or whatever. And so I kind of fell out of love with it because I was like, that's not my photography. You know what I mean? That's not what I loved.
Yeah.
Which is a silly way to think of it, honestly. But I don't know. I was getting a little jaded, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I saw this tintype stuff, and I was like, oh, man, that spoke to my heart. And, we got a couple tintypes done by the people that came to the show, and they were such kind people. And the man, it was a couple, man and his wife, and the husband was like, I'll tell you what. He's like, I will write down all the equipment I use, some blogs to check out and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Yeah. He sent me all the stuff. I did a little bit with it. But put it away because I wasn't the best.
Yeah.
You know, going back to that. And now I'm finally coming back around, and Josh was so encouraging. He's always like, I know you love it. I know that's where your heart is, you know?
Yeah.
And so now we've been looking into getting, you know, a 10-type camera and getting back into it because I've given myself permission to be able to do those, you know, imperfect actions, as you call them.
Yeah.
You know, and I finally gotten to a place where I'm like, okay, you don't have to be the best right out of the gate. There's a learning process, and you'll get there.
Yeah.
And tintype tintype is a good metaphor for that because what makes them so cool is they're
imperfections.
imperfect.
Yeah.
And you know, you never know what you're going to get, and it's always different.
Yeah, I was going to ask for our listeners and viewers to let them know what tintype photography even means.
Yeah, so it's in a very old kind of photography. What it is you take a piece of tin, basically, and you put chemicals on it, and you put it inside of a camera as if it were the film, you know. And so, like, old photographs that you see on metal and stuff, those are tin types.
Awesome.
And so you take the photograph, it you know, goes onto the tin, and then you have to take it, you know, in a box where no light reaches it, straight basically into a dark room and process it right there.
They look so fucking cool.
They're very cool.
Yeah, everybody looks really stoic because you have to do a long exposure.
Really
so
still.
Nobody really smiles. Everybody's just like,
Right.
you know what I mean? So they just automatically look badass, you know?
But they're just beautiful. They're just so beautiful. And, you know, like I said, that's the kind of photography that really speaks to my heart. That's what the kind of photography I fell in love with in high school, you know, being in the dark room and stuff. And so when I saw that people were bringing that back around, it's photography from like the late 1800s, early 1900s. I'm like, God, that's where we always say that I was born too late. You know, I wasn't meant for you know, technology. I should have been born a long time ago because of that stuff. All of it just speaks to me, you know.
Yeah.
But she's similar to me and to all of us, though, to where, you know, these cameras are old and handcrafted, so naturally they're pretty expensive. And I'm like, let's just go buy it. You deserve this. This is why we work so hard, so we can have these nice things. And she's like, you know, she'll be walking around the store and pick up a candle she likes and carry it around with her. And put it back on the shelf. So it's like she'll buy me everything I want. She'll buy the kids everything. But she doesn't buy herself stuff. So I'm like, you fucking buy this camera. I'm telling you, this is your love. This is your heart. She's going to be amazing at it. She's going to love it. Her birthday's around the corner. And I'm buying it for you. So it's happening.
That's awesome. As you were saying it, I was trying to think of like, wow, how cool to have like a tin type photography setup or booth at Evergreen.
Right?
It was very cool. It was tricky because, you know, you need a dark room basically, and this couple, they had like kind of a portable like box that they could do it in, but it was really difficult for them, so we had to find them literally a closet to go develop these tin types in.
And people loved it. They were charging like a fair price.
It's like $50 for like a 3x5, you know,
and
tin.
A lot of tattoo artists, like specifically, I think tattoo artists, people with tattoos look super cool with these.
It's cool. Like your tattoos kind of disappear.
Some of them disappear for some weird reason.
It's so strange.
So,
and then people with very light blue eyes, like sometimes their eyes will kind of not look like they have irises.
Everybody looks like vampires.
Wow.
It's really interesting.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you'll be seeing some awesome tintype from Nichole soon because it's she loves it. Like she gets all like excited about it. You know what I mean? And so I'm really excited. We found a really nice camera that's hand built. It's modeled directly exactly off of these original cameras with the bellows, and the lens is an original 1800 lens
from
and stuff
France.
from France. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah, it's exciting for me to see her because I geek out about stuff. You know what I mean? Like you've heard me talk about drones and my electric bikes and all that. And you know, Nikki's like super like evergreen and super supportive of the Josh show, like I always call it. But this is something that it's very Nikki, and I love seeing it. I love seeing her excitement for it. So she's gonna fucking get it.
To clarify, you got one shot at a photo,
One shot.
and then you got to go to a dark room. It's not like you can load another put that one
No.
aside, or
And there's little imperfections, and those little imperfections are what make it super fucking interesting. Wow. And just as an artist, those that are listening, if you're not really familiar, look it up. You will be astonished at how beautiful this very shallow depth of field. So somebody's nose will be in focus, but their ears kind of will be out of focus.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't want to say it's hard to take a bad picture because obviously exposure and everything comes into play.
Sure.
Right.
But
Well, in focus, because it is a long exposure. So a long exposure in photography, for if you guys don't know, you have to, so a camera has a shutter, right? So the shutter's always closed, and then when you push the button, the shutter opens, lets some light in, and then closes right back.
Yeah.
Well, when it's a long exposure, that shutter stays open, but if you move, it's going to be blurry.
Yeah.
So you have to hold real still, and then that shutter stays open for a long time and then closes.
And it's part of the art of it.
And that's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so would you say, at least on your end, are you straight up on a tripod so you don't have to hold it steady that long?
Absolutely. Yeah. With tintype, it would always be on a tripod because there's no way you're going to be able to hold it steady that long.
And the cameras are big, like she said, everybody has an iPhone, and I think her feeling like everybody thinks they're a photographer or whatever. And some people are doing nice
and some
photography.
are incredible photographers with their
Yes,
phones.
we're not knocking that, but her having a tactile, real camera with a real lens, and it's just, like I said, it's her heart, and it's exciting. It's very, because we have a dark room. We've actually bought a dark room for traditional photography, and it became like a hobby. We played with it, but this I feel like is something that you're really gonna. And I'm excited for just her shooting reference for me.
Right.
If I go to do a portrait of, I could dress my daughter up with cool like makeup on her face and take it. She can take a tintype photography.
Yeah.
Like, what a cool painting would that be? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Stuff like that. So
and most of your art hinges in that feeling
Yeah.
anyways.
Absolutely.
Exactly. That's a perfect example of what we're just drawn to that. You know what I mean? So
that's awesome.
They are cool. Like the different, like.
Are you on Instagram, Heb?
No, I'm Googling it right now, just looking at different pictures.
If you go to Instagram, check out like Armadillo Tintype. I follow a few different tintype photographers.
Oh, he wasn't
on Instagram.
looking up tintype. He's just looking at pictures randomly.
just porn.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
this is
you
dope.
could technically do tintypes of that stuff.
Oh, she might
Maybe
be.
that's my- maybe
maybe she just discovered something.
Maybe
Yeah.
that'll be my genre.
Is that an 1820s dick?
Man.
These almost look like charcoal drawings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do.
Nice
They're just-
contrast.
yeah.
That I always talk about like pushing the black in your work and everything. Tintype has really got a lot of that. It's the kind of thing that like you've heard me talk about when I see tattoo. When I was a kid, well not a kid, when I was younger, and I'd see see Paul Booth in a magazine, I'd almost get like shivery inside. Tintype photography still makes me feel like that. Yeah.
Ooh, that's
Yeah.
great. That's cool. Some of your photos that you found of yourself or that a friend sent you in recent months from when you were in high school.
Yeah.
They almost had a tintype vibe. To
Yeah,
some
and
of
that's
them.
because that
that
was my
old darkroom
that was my
feel.
first love is
Yeah.
black and white photography. Yeah. So
Yeah. Very
Cool.
cool. There's so many cliche sayings, but there's a reason why they're cliche because they're usually
Yeah.
true,
Yeah.
But the one that's like behind, every great man's a great woman,
For
that's
sure.
definitely the
for sure,
the
100%.
truth in this case.
Yeah. So looking back, when I'm like, "You'll never be number one," it's like,
I was like, I'll be number one.
yeah,
I'll be number one.
she's number one.
You watch.
Yeah. And for our listeners to know, now Nicole, you actually are tattooing, correct?
I am, yeah. I am doing cosmetic tattooing, eyebrows, eyeliner, lips.
Blackouts.
I did a blackout on Joshua's leg that
Yeah.
I feel pretty proud of. It healed
That
nice and
shit
black.
looks fucking solid,
It's solid.
saturated, black as
It's-
fuck. I think
I'll-
she packs better than me. For
I'll,
real.
I'll be honest, like it barely peeled. She packs black better than a lot of seasoned tattooers, including
Yeah.
myself. It took me like 15 years to get to the level that her first fucking blackout was. So I don't know how that happened, but
I paid attention.
Yeah.
He thinks I don't listen
Yeah.
sometimes, and I'm like, I listen. Yeah.
So-
what size mag did you use on him?
45.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
45 Magnum.
You should start using that to do eyelashes or eyebrows.
Shit.
Oh shit. You know, it's like no matter how many sets of brows I do, no matter how many eyeliners I do, I still stress out leading up to it.
It's not going to go away.
Oh god.
Right. Welcome.
And it's a different kind of clientele.
Wow.
But the women, I love them. I do. My clients are great.
Yeah.
But I can't relate to them quite as much as I can a lot of like tattoo clients. Does that make sense? They're a different kind of clientele a lot of times.
Yeah.
And I've found that I don't know how many of them have come in and they'll be like, my husband doesn't know I'm doing this, or I didn't tell my husband I was doing this until yesterday and he's really upset with me. And I'm going, why? I can't imagine Joshua being upset with me for doing something that's going to make me feel better. You know what I mean? Like, because most of them, they come in, if they're getting brows, a lot of times they either overplucked when they were young and they don't have the hair there anymore, or, some kind of autoimmune disorder or something, a lot of times. So it helps them to feel better about themselves, to have that makeup. A lot of them are older ladies that can't see to put their makeup on anymore. Yeah. And so it's like, I don't understand why these husbands can't be more supportive. And that shows me my privilege in having a good relationship. Yeah. Where my husband is supportive of whatever the fuck I want to do. Right. I've talked about shaving my head before, and he's like, if that's what you really want to do, you go for it, know? Yeah. But I feel like these women that come in, their husbands are very controlling, and if they were to ever want to really do anything, they have to get permission like they're a child. Yeah.
Damn right. I'm just kidding.
Right. But, going to the marriage thing, it's like I don't, and I'm sure you guys have experienced this as a tattooer. I think that, hairstylists and all of us service industry people are almost like become these people's therapists, and I can see so clearly from the outside if they're talking, I'm like, well, I can see why your marriage isn't working. Right. Right. But when you're on the inside of something like that, I guess it's just not as clear. Right. It's just not as clear of a picture when you're inside of it. Yeah.
They say self-deception. No, I like it. They say self-deception is hard to spot by yourself, and sometimes getting a non-biased person who really doesn't give a fuck. Or not to say don't give a fuck, because I care when my clients come to me and we talk through some things.
Absolutely, but someone that's isn't so involved in it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Wow. Man, this is awesome, and it's fun too, because just like listening to to who you are and where you came from in the position you play in Josh's life and our lives, and I think it's going to be interesting to see like. Interview with like Megan and then Katie, and just because I almost feel it's like she's the extreme on this side, Katie's the extreme on this side, and Megan's like kind of in the middle. She's started her own job now and kind of does that, but also like, dude, anytime she comes to a convention with me, she becomes friends with my clients on social media before I do, and then years will pass, and she's like, oh, it's so-and-so's birthday, and I'm like, who? And she's like, the fucking person you tattooed a couple years ago. I'm like, how do you know? And she's like, because we were friends. We've been talking this whole time. I'm like, what? I'll be head down tattooing, and I'll look up, and my client and her are like crying because they're having a moment, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to have your wives on the show too, for sure.
Well, Nicole, we appreciate you so much for being a guest on our show.
I appreciate being invited. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. I have ADD a little bit.
Yeah. Thanks for supporting us. Thanks for supporting Josh. Thanks for supporting this Tattoo Guardians podcast.
Oh, yeah, of course.
It's taken a lot for all of us. I was about to thank your dog, but it seems like he don't give a fuck.
He's like, I'm done with you guys. I need to go. Yeah.
Happy
We're
day.
walking our neighbor's dog today too, so we gotta.
Yeah.
That's gonna be interesting to see. We'll have to walk 3 dogs at once. So
3 dogs in the hills.
well, I'll be reporting back next week how that went.
Hopefully I don't slip and fall. I'm super accident prone and I've busted my knee open God knows how many times.
Well, we live on the hill, like really steep. When I say we live on the hills, like we really live like
It's real steep.
They're really steep, and so she's not the most graceful person,
I'm not.
and she falls down a lot. So
Yeah.
hopefully I'm not. What's the word when you like say something and then it happens later?
That's right.
Like burning
Oh, like-
bread.
Foreshadowing. Hopefully I'm not foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully not.
see.
We'll find
Yeah.
out next week.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we love you guys. Thank you.
Love you too.
Have a good walk. Thanks,
Thanks,
Yeah, we
Thanks,
will.
Nicole.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.